I am not a person. I am a window latch in apartment 5A in the seaside town of Praia da Luz. I am used to the smell of sunscreen, children's laughter, and sandy fingers. That night, in mid-May, I felt a touch unlike the usual, light, hesitant, as if someone were asking, "Can we pass through silence?" A gap opened between the voile curtain and the dark. In that gap, there was a child's name, 3 syllables floating like grains of salt in the wind. Madeleine. Adults argued about me for years after, whether I was open or closed, whether there were traces or not. But there's one thing I know. When silence passed through me, it knew the way. Praia da Luz, a Portuguese town folded out of tissue paper, narrow streets, whitewashed walls, red-tiled roofs, a sea as blue as a great pane of glass. That day, a British family arrived for a holiday, parents, friends, and children. Apartment 5A, an ordinary-looking space, bedrooms, a living room, a window over low shrubs, and a gray corner of yard, a gate, a walkway, a habit of rotating checks. We look in on them every few minutes, they said. Small towns share a secret. By day, things are bright and simple. The 6 by night, the distance between 2 houses stretches farther than we remember. In that distance, sometimes a story loses its trail. We will walk through that night without judgment, without rushing to conclude. Simply listening as inanimate things tell their share of memory. The evening began like any holiday evening, sunset pouring over the courtyard, the smell of seafood, conversation at a tapas bar a short walk away. In apartment 5A, 3 small beds and familiar toys. At the bar, there was a schedule of checks every few minutes. Between them were narrow streets, a few blind corners, a few shadows. Here, each minute can be very long, and sometimes, a single minute is enough for everything to begin anew. From the clean draft of calm to the torn margin of the unusual. There were many clocks running that night. The mother's wristwatch, sometimes fast from worry. The father's clock of memory, sometimes slow from disbelief. The neighbor's clock, standing at a doorway hearing the murmur. The police clock, each call logged, each arrival marked. When we fit many clocks together, the minute hands don't always align. Between minute hands off by a few ticks, an entire night can fit. We stack the second hands, not to find fault, but to find a common heartbeat. The voile curtain says it saw a shadow pass, or perhaps it was only wind. The door says it was ajar or closed, depending on who asks and when. Someone on the street says they saw a figure carrying a little girl. The pace hurried, head lowered, a light-colored garment. Someone else, in another place, says they saw something similar. A large hand, small legs dangling, as if sleep had grown heavier than the sea. We do not fuse 2 glances into a perfect picture. We set them side by side, leaving white space between them for what we don't know. When 2 witnesses speak in opposite winds, listen to the surf between them. That night, the town stayed awake. Flashlights drew bright strokes like highlighters retracing jumbled memory. Courtyards, parking lots, hedges, the beach, phone calls, questions, hand-drawn maps, and fear seeping into the hollows of eyes. The window latch felt the room missing the sound of 3 small breaths. Missing 1 breath, the room sounded as wide as the entire town. As footsteps thin out, the questions will multiply. By morning, lenses arrived, words arrived, and the story left the town to settle in the chests of a continent. In that noise, rumors wore suits, theories wore wide-brimmed hats, and criticisms wore black gloves. The truth, if it were a person, stood quietly at the water's edge, watching waves bring ashore countless identical shells. Turn the volume down and listen again to the room's breathing. Science does not speak loudly. It speaks in fibers, shoe prints, and blurred numbers. Tests arrived and departed. Hypotheses set on the scale like two oranges that refuse to weigh the same. Some results suggest, some negate, some say insufficient to conclude. In the lab, one learns a strange right. Sometimes, silence is the most accurate answer available. From white rooms back to whitewashed town. First hypothesis, an opportunistic stranger. It speaks of a passing shadow, an easy window, a favorable night. It leans on the feeling that malice sometimes needs only a crack in habit. Second hypothesis, accident and concealment. It speaks of instant fear, a wrong decision, and puzzle pieces misplaced because humans are imperfect. Third hypothesis, a deliberate target. It speaks of surveilling, preparation, nets we cannot see. 6, and a hand more familiar with the paths than we think. We do not go all the way down any single path, because each ends at a wall that reads, insufficient to conclude. Among the 3 roads, we return to the map of the first night. Let me, the latch, tell it with my tongue of metal. I remember a hesitant hand, not a hand familiar to this home. I remember the curtain breathing, a ribbon of air slipping past like an apology. I did not see a face. I only know that silence had experience. The voile says it can't tell footfalls from a stronger gust. It only knows it swelled. The plaster says it held a stranger's scent for a few minutes and then gave it back to the sea. Inanimate things cannot lie. They also cannot promise. Years passed. Files opened, closed, and opened again. New names surfaced, new places were searched, breaking news cooled. But people's hearts still remember that night of sea wind. On some late afternoons, a reporter sits alone at a screen, typing old words in a different voice. On some nights, an investigator listens to old tapes again, hoping for a forgotten syllable. 1.2 People change, inanimate things remain. This is not only a case file. This is a child. Every sentence we tell should go barefoot. We may favor a hypothesis because it pleases our imagination, but truth does not accept likes. In noir, light arrives late, but it arrives. Late may be a lifetime. Late may be a strange current pushing something ashore. Before the lights come on, let's review what we know. What we know. A holiday night turned into a missing person file. There was a schedule of checks. There is a gap of time. There were fleeting sightings of someone carrying a small child, but no clear photograph. The search and investigation spanned years, multiple agencies, multiple reopenings. What we don't know: who moved through the gap that night? What was the motive? Opportunity, accident, or design? Which items of evidence remain silent because we have not yet learned how to ask them? What can be tested at the storytelling level? Reconstruct the habit route to see where the night had cracks. Place the 2 fleeting glances on the same map, not to merge them, but to locate the white space between them. Study the clocks, the time marks, to find points of irreconcilability rather than forcing a match. When these 3 columns stand side by side, they become a stand for patience. Some streets are as narrow as fingers, some rooms as small as an exhale. Yet your story has grown wider than the map. People who never knew you still speak your name in their living rooms. as if hanging a small star by the door. If noir teaches anything, it's this: light is in no hurry. But light does not forget. Back to the latch, one last time. I have heard thousands of openings, closings. One day, a familiar sound will return. The clink of a key, a whisper saying enough. That day, I will do what I was made to do: close, so the wind can no longer pass through the gap. The room breathes in, the room breathes out. On a night in Praia da Luz, a small story became a mirror for the world's fear and hope. We have listened to the curtain, the door, the latch, the plaster, witnesses that cannot lie and cannot claim to have seen what they did not. In the dark, the most haunting thing isn't malice, it's the gap. The gap between two checks, between two witnesses, between two lines of news. 0.6, where truth stands still, waiting for a gentle hand to touch it. If you are listening somewhere, breathe with the sea and leave a quiet space for this name to pass through. Madeleine McCann. Light is in no hurry, but light does not forget.